No one needed another YouTube channel with someone blathering on about current events, but I decided to create one anyway so I can be a hero and inspire other disabled people in wheelchairs who want to rant on YouTube. Most disabled people are really good at ranting because we have to do it so often. It's also fun to give lectures to managers of restaurants that do not have wheelchair ramps. These are usually restaurants we wouldn't go to anyway because we're on a fixed income and can't afford to pay $19 for a bowl of oatmeal. Anyway, my name is Quisp, just like the cereal, the cold cereal. That's the nickname my best friend who lives in Phoenix, Arizona gave me growing up. It's a long story, but I plan to tell my 38 followers on YouTube how I got that nickname. I'm also a former journalist who comes from the Game of Thrones era in journalism, when journalists practiced a little something called objectivity. Now that I'm in the process of dying more slowly than a John Cassavetes film, I also give zero fucks and decided to speak my mind. I don't have to worry about getting canceled as my disability is already canceling me quite nicely. That all said, welcome to the cereal box, my fellow humans on coronavirus house arrest. One of the other reasons I hesitated to do a YouTube channel, besides the fact the number of YouTube channels and podcasts demonstrate that we definitely have an overpopulation problem with the human race, especially an overpopulation problem with idiots like me, is because I got fat when I was living in Chicago for a year before moving back to this natural light paradise we all call Arizona. In Chicago, I was literally unable to leave my apartment for 3 months because no one shoveled the snow in front of my apartment building. Now, as you can see from this horrible pixelated photo of my body from about a decade ago, this was before I became wheelchair bound, I'm pretty vain and I worked out a lot and tried to get a six-pack. I planned to get that body back before I showed my face again, but delaying getting a custom wheelchair and this COVID-19 house arrest took a giant shit all over those plans. So once I get back to the new normal, I hope we can lose this weight together because, as you know, we do everything together on YouTube. Okay, I'm going to stop speaking in my get off my lawn voice, partially because I live in Arizona and I don't really have a lawn, and also I don't have a get off my lawn mentality. I am not someone who thinks the past is better, or even the recent past. The COVID-19 isolation chamber experiment has broken me of my Starbucks habit, and also I used to be a bartender, actually a mixologist, in one of my many jobs I had at one time to pay off massive student loan debt. So I like drinking at home much better than I like going out to bars. At home, there's also no one to judge me, besides maybe my service dog, about my day drinking. Except, you know, history might judge all of us about our day drinking during this crisis. And this is coffee, just coffee. Would I lie on YouTube? I started out using the ranty voice because I'm nervous about showing how fat I've gotten. And I am also naturally an introvert, believe it or not. Otherwise, I'm super happy with life. I mean, look at this awesome porch. When you go to your doctor and find out you're going to die before humans are all replaced by robots, there's a certain peace that overwhelms your entire being. And you start to dress like a 55-year-old Arizona woman who works at the local candle shop. I actually made these yoga pants, but that's another. I made this as well, too. I have a little clothing company, but that's a whole other story altogether. You know, I'm happy. I also thought everybody should meet my service dog, Meghan Markle. This is Meghan Markle. Yes, she's baby right now. We do this, I call this baby, where she sits on my lap like this and I pet her. So, she's a Staffordshire Terrier, which is the antecedent to pit bulls, and I've always had rescue pits. They're the best dogs in the world, and this is the beautiful and talented Meghan Markle, my service dog, and also baby. Yes, you baby. Oh, baby. So what is this channel Cereal Box going to be about? It's going to be commentary on current events and culture, as if we needed another channel like that on YouTube, but with as little confirmation bias as possible. And in trying to remove this confirmation bias, while also venting my frustrations as what can best be described as a disaffected leftist who wears male yoga pants, one of the major subjects will be bias in the current formation of the news media. We are also going to watch this dumpster fire in a meth lab explosion of a 220 presidential race, which I think is going to end up in Trump just beating Joe Biden up as if this was a verbal UFC match. And by the way, since we are all in coronavirus home jail, you know, why not do some mental masturbation? Because mental masturbation has become a literal thing as we communicate with no physical contact and as we could be masturbating while we're Zooming with people. And you know, lots of people on YouTube create commentary on the media, then someone else creates commentary on their commentary on the media, and then someone songifies that commentary. But many of these people were never press pass carrying members of the Satanic Temple we call the American Newsmedia. I am proud and not so proud to say I was. My last gig was as a web producer at Congressional Quarterly before the owner of CQ, Pointer, put the entire pension fund of the St. Petersburg Times, which they owned as well, in a hedge fund, lost it overnight. And so then, you know, CQ had to sell assets to put money back in the pension fund. CQ was sold to Roll Call, which covered the Senate. CQ, Congressional Quarterly, used to cover the Congress, and Roll Call covered the Senate. Roll Call was owned by The Economist, so technically, oh wow, I didn't realize that. So technically, the Economist bought CQ, rolled it into Roll Call. The CQ building was sold to a real estate developer, and guess what it is now? You guessed it, luxury condos. Anyway, so after I was laid off from CQ, I spent about 6 months in Nashville working on a web series, and then I worked at as a doorman at an infamous hip-hop club called Atlantis, just because I'm going to include some of my journey in all of this. Oh, I had a brain fart there. Joe Biden is affecting all of us. We don't just have the coronavirus, we have the Joe Biden Alzheimer's brain fart virus. But anyway, after I left journalism, I was afraid that I was as stupid as many of the white people I work with in journalism. Being a person of color who is allegedly high achieving, I'm very self-conscious about affirmative action myths, and I think the American Newsmedia is basically a job that mentally retarded upper class people take, and I was afraid that I was as dumb as these people, so I became a coder, a computer programmer, and I got a job contracting at Booz Allen Hamilton. And, Megan needs to go on a walk. Megan, we're talking to ourselves on camera. And I worked at Booz Allen Hamilton at the same time as Edward Snowden worked there. Although I was in Virginia and he was in Hawaii. But that was pretty fun because before I became disabled, I actually became disabled while I was working at Booz Allen. What an interesting metaphor, as well as sort of a moral lesson I think a lot of you might think as well. But, you know, that's when I became disabled. And that's my story. And so now we're going to take Megan on a walk. We might day drink. And we'll talk to everyone soon from the cereal box.